She clawed my daughter's face open, called her trash, and smiled while she bled. So I dragged her by the neck through every aisle, slammed her into metal, and threw her through a wall of glass. You think she learned her lesson? She didn't. That's why, 3 minutes later, I made her do something that broke her more than the fall ever could. Want to know what it was? But before any of that happened, before the blood, the glass, and the silence, there was just a chocolate bar, a quiet aisle, and my daughter asking for something sweet. I should have known something was wrong the moment I saw her shoes. Patent leather heels. White. Gleaming. Too perfect for a grocery store in the middle of the afternoon. But I didn't think twice. Not then. Ellie tugged on my sleeve as we stepped into the small convenience store tucked between the community center and the HOA office. "Just one chocolate bar, Daddy. Please?" I smiled, ruffled her hair. "All right. Grab it quick while I get some water." She darted off. I turned my back for 10 seconds, maybe 15. When I returned, she was frozen, right at the checkout line, her small hand still gripping the chocolate bar. And standing in front of her was her. Karen. The scarf around her neck was silk. Her hair, dyed a burnt caramel, twisted into a sculpted chignon, like she had just stepped off a pageant stage. Her expression? Arrogant boredom. She hadn't seen me yet. But I saw her. Her eyes flicked to Ellie's faded shoes, then to her hand, then to the bar. "Where's your mother?" she asked, voice honeyed with venom. Ellie didn't answer. "Figures," Karen muttered. "Rats breed rats." My fingers curled. Something ancient stirred in my chest. Karen leaned closer, her breath inches from Ellie's cheek. "That's not yours. Put it back. Now." Ellie flinched. I took one slow step forward, then another, and I knew, the moment she touched my daughter, something inside me would break. But I didn't know just how far I'd go to make her pay, not yet. Ellie didn't move. Her fingers still clutched the chocolate bar like it was the last piece of safety she had. Karen's smile widened, tight, fake, barbed. The kind of smile people wear when they're about to do something cruel and want you to know they'll enjoy it. She bent down slightly, her perfume, floral, expensive, suffocating, drenching the air between them. "Let me guess," she whispered, just loud enough for Ellie to hear. "Daddy couldn't afford lunch, so you thought you'd help yourself?" Ellie's eyes darted to the cashier, but the woman behind the register quickly looked away, like she hadn't heard, like she didn't want to get involved. Karen straightened up and glanced around the store. No one was watching. No one would stop her. "You people never learn boundaries," Karen muttered, then added louder. "Where's her guardian? This child's clearly unsupervised." I was 2 aisles away, grabbing water. I heard the words but didn't quite process them yet. Then I heard the snap. Karen yanked the chocolate bar from Ellie's hand. "Trash doesn't get treats," she sneered. Ellie gasped, stepping back, only for Karen to step forward, towering over her. And then, she raised her hand. Not to point, not to scold, to swipe. Her fingers raked across Ellie's cheek in a quick, savage motion, leaving behind 4 red lines, raw and rising like welts. Ellie screamed. She stumbled back, holding her face, eyes wide with disbelief. "You ungrateful little brat," Karen hissed. "I should have your family reported." The cashier froze. One man browsing chips down the aisle looked up, then ducked away behind the shelves. No one moved. No one said a word. Karen turned her back as if nothing had happened and smoothed her scarf. "This store used to have standards," she said to no one in particular. "Now it just lets beggars roam free." Then I rounded the corner. I saw Ellie, hand trembling, face bleeding. And I saw her. Karen turned. Her eyes met mine. And for one brief, flickering second, she hesitated. Then she smiled again. "Oh," she said sweetly. "You're the father." I didn't answer. I didn't blink. I just walked toward her. "Now, Let's be reasonable here, she said, backing up a step, adjusting her blouse. It was just a misunderstanding. Your daughter. She was being inappropriate. I didn't hear the rest. All I heard was Ellie's soft, choked whisper behind me. Daddy, she hurt me. That was the moment. Something in me broke. It wasn't anger. It was colder than that. It was precision. A quiet, focused fury. And when I looked into Karen's eyes, I saw it. The shift. She realized far too late that she hadn't just touched a child. She'd declared war. Karen took another step back. Her heel clicked against the tile floor, louder than before. Nervous now. Her fingers fluttered near her chest, adjusting the gold HOA name badge pinned to her blouse like it would protect her. Let's not overreact, she said with a forced laugh. This is just a case of poor parenting. You weren't watching her. I was trying to help. She looked around. You all saw, didn't you? She was grabbing candy, without permission. She needed to be corrected. I didn't stop walking. My boots echoed through the aisle. 1, 2, 3 steps. Karen's breath hitched. This is assault, she snapped. You can't come near me like that. I'll call security. I'll call the board. I am the board. Still, I said nothing. Because what do you say to someone who thinks hurting a child is discipline? I looked down at her hand, the same one she used to scratch my daughter's face. The nails were painted a sterile pink, manicured, shaking. I reached for her wrist, calmly, deliberately. Don't touch me! She screamed. Too late. I yanked her forward, spun her by the shoulders, and slammed her upper back flat against the metal shelf behind her. A cascade of canned beans rattled above us. One fell and rolled across the floor like a warning shot. Karen gasped, frozen. You hurt a child, I growled. My child. I leaned in, close enough to see the panic blooming in her eyes. Do you know what kind of man I become when someone touches my kid? Karen's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Her lips twitched, searching for a lie, any lie. But all the venom had drained from her. The store was silent. No one moved. Even the cashier, eyes wide, didn't dare lift her hand from the register. You're insane, Karen hissed. You think this makes you a hero? You're just another angry thug. I smiled, cold and clean. No, I'm the consequence. And then I let go. Just long enough for her to stumble sideways, disoriented, heels scraping the floor. She tried to collect herself, straightened her scarf, opened her mouth to speak again. And I grabbed her by the hair. The gasp from the crowd was sharp. I didn't drag her far, just enough. I spun her once more and drove her face first into the shelf again. This time the shelves groaned. Cans clattered. Karen cried out, not a wail, not yet, but a high, shocked sound, more insulted than pained. Good. Let her feel everything. We're not done, I said, stepping back. Not even close. Karen whimpered, because for the first time in her life she realized no title, no badge, no scarf could save her now. If you're still with me right now, type yes in the comments. Let's see who's following this all the way. Karen tried to crawl away, heels slipping on the smooth tile, but I grabbed her arm and jerked her upright. Let go of me, she shrieked, voice cracking. This is abuse. I'll have your house condemned. I'll sue you for everything you own. She still didn't get it. She still thought she was in charge. I said nothing, just spun her around again, this time gripping the back of her neck, and shoved her down aisle 3, past cereal boxes and paper towels. She stumbled, her handbag catching on a shelf and ripping clean off her shoulder. Cans rattled. People gasped. Sir, please, the cashier called faintly. But even she didn't move from behind the counter. No one did, because they'd seen what Karen had done. They'd seen the blood on Ellie's cheek. This wasn't violence. This was retribution. Karen tried to turn. I caught her by the elbow and drove her into the next rack, soap bottles and detergent crashing around her as her side slammed into the metal bars. You psychopath! She screamed. This is a lawsuit! I know lawyers! I am HOA! I leaned in close, whispered in her ear. Not anymore. I pushed her forward again, down aisle 4, the canned food section. Each step she stumbled worse. Her scarf was gone, her blouse torn at the shoulder, her perfect bun unraveling. We passed a group of teenagers with phones in their hands, filming. One whispered, "That's the woman who banned Halloween decorations last year." Another said, "She slashed my bike tires when I parked on the sidewalk." The stories were piling up, just like the dents on the shelves she hit. "You think this makes you some kind of father?" Karen spat, wheezing. "You're a disgrace. You and that little brat, you're nothing." I stopped. I didn't speak. I turned her hard, face to face, and for 1 second, she saw the shift. Not fury, precision. Then I rammed her shoulder first into a tower of paper towel packs, sending them toppling in all directions. She collapsed to her knees, surrounded by the mess, panting, shaking, mascara streaked. "Get up," I said. "You're done," she hissed, defiant through gritted teeth. "I'll call every board in this county, every contact I have." I reached down, grabbed her by the back of her collar, and lifted her. Then I dragged her past the frozen section, her reflection smeared across the glass doors, and shoved her against the next end cap. More items fell. Boxes burst open. Karen was trembling now. Still fighting, still cursing, but weaker. "You don't understand what you've done," she sobbed. "This was a mistake. She was the one stealing. She deserved discipline." I grabbed her chin, tilted her face toward the overhead camera. "You want a record?" I said. "Let's make one." Her makeup was ruined. Her earrings gone. Her expression, a mix of fury, fear, and disbelief that the world wasn't protecting her anymore. Because it wasn't. It was watching. And no one, not a single soul, came to stop me. Not yet. Because every person in that store knew. This wasn't revenge. This was justice, served cold and shelf by shelf. Karen's legs buckled again, but I didn't let her fall. Not yet. I wanted her upright. I wanted her seen. I dragged her toward the front of the store, past the checkout lanes, past the shocked, silent faces that lined the aisles. Every step echoed like a verdict. Her heels had snapped, one completely gone. So she limped, one foot bare, the other scraping plastic across tile. "You're sick," she muttered through clenched teeth. "This isn't justice. It's assault. You're going to prison." I didn't respond. I just tightened my grip on her arm. The front of the store came into view. The large windowed display beside the exit. It was clean, flawless, and filled with a carefully stacked tower of snack boxes and canned drinks. It wouldn't be for long. "I'll ruin you," Karen hissed. "You don't know who I am. I run this place." That's when I stopped walking. I turned her to face the glass. People outside had begun to gather, drawn by the scene, the voices, the whispers. A child pointed. A man pulled out his phone. Somewhere behind me, the chime of the front door sounded as more witnesses stepped in. And still, no one interfered. Karen tried to pull away. I gripped the back of her neck and leaned in one last time. "You hurt my daughter. You humiliated her. Now it's your turn." She opened her mouth, maybe to scream, maybe to beg. But I didn't wait. I launched her forward, shoulder first, into the center of the display. Glass shattered like thunder. The tower of boxes collapsed with her, cans and wrappers raining around her as her body crashed through the display, landing in a chaotic mess of broken merchandise and shards. Gasps rippled across the store. Phones were everywhere. Someone outside screamed. Inside, silence. Karen lay tangled in cardboard, snack wrappers, and what used to be a promotion sign for Community Cleanup Week, sponsored by the HOA. Her blouse was torn, her necklace broken, her hair, once sculpted and proud, now matted across her face. One hand reached weakly for her fallen shoe, then gave up. She didn't move again. I stepped toward the wreckage, calm, picked up the golden HOA badge that had fallen from her chest. It was bent, cracked, I held it up, turned to the security camera above the register, and slowly dropped it in the nearest trash bin. "There's your president," I said. "Tell the board I returned her." Karen groaned. Barely. But no one helped her. No one dared. Ellie stood by the entrance now, holding her chocolate bar in both hands, eyes wide. I walked over, knelt beside her. "Are you okay, baby?" She nodded slowly. I took her hand. We walked past Karen, past the cashier, past the onlookers who parted like water. And behind us, the woman who ruled the HOA with a fake smile and a file folder full of threats, lay broken, half covered in crushed chips and shame. It was over. Almost. Because a video was about to go viral. And her downfall had only just begun. It didn't take long. By the time I'd driven Ellie home and washed the dried streak of blood from her cheek, the video was already climbing past 50,000 views. A woman named Sandra, one of the bystanders at the store, had posted it with the caption, "HOA President attacks child, gets what she deserves." Within hours, it was everywhere. Clips on TikTok with slow-motion replays, screenshots of Karen lying in the wreckage beneath captions like, "Queen of HOA meets Queen of Aisle 5. Hashtags trending, hashtag Karen cracked, hashtag HOA reckoning, hash don't touch my kid." Some people cheered, some argued, but most stayed silent and watched, because the footage spoke for itself. It began with Ellie's tiny frame holding the candy bar. Then Karen's sharp movement, her hand striking down. Then me, dragging her, slamming her, and finally, throwing her through the glass. It wasn't pretty, but it was real. And real was what this neighborhood had been missing for far too long. By nightfall, the HOA's group chat was in flames. Screenshots leaked. Board members resigning one by one. One wrote, "I never supported her methods. I was pressured." Another said, "She made me threaten a veteran over holiday lights. I'm done." Karen? Silent, at least officially. Unofficially, rumors were already swirling. She'd been escorted out of the emergency room in a wheelchair, face bruised, arm possibly fractured. One nurse claimed she tried to scream at staff for not recognizing her HOA badge, and they laughed. The world she built with fear was now laughing at her. The next morning, someone spray-painted her garage door. "Children, remember." Another neighbor hung a sign on their lawn. "We are not your HOA." And then came the property audit. Turns out, Karen had used HOA funds to upgrade her landscaping 4 times last year. The receipts didn't lie. Neither did the city inspector, who opened an official inquiry into misuse of community finances. Ellie sat beside me on the porch that evening, knees pulled to her chest. She looked small, quiet, but not scared anymore. "Is she gone, Daddy?" she asked. I nodded. "She's finished." We sat in silence, the wind brushing past the chimes Karen once tried to ban from every porch. But the final blow didn't come from me. It came from the community. At the next HOA meeting, held in the clubhouse Karen had once ruled like a throne, someone brought a trash bag to the podium. They dumped it on the table. Inside were dozens of torn-up violation notices, HOA fee receipts marked refunded, and Karen's shattered nameplate, still cracked from the store floor. "We're starting over," a voice said. "Without fear, without her." The room erupted in applause. And Karen? Nowhere in sight. Because for the first time in years, the neighborhood wasn't hers anymore. It belonged to the people she stepped on. And she was just another name behind a broken window and a broken legacy. It came in an envelope thicker than most. Embossed, gold-trimmed, delivered by hand. Not the mail, not a knock. Just sitting there, on my front porch, resting against the welcome mat like it belonged there. I opened it with Ellie on my lap, still wrapped in her favorite blanket, the one with the worn edges and faded stars. Inside, a formal letter, printed on crisp white paper. "Dear Sir, in light of recent events and the unanimous vote from the Interim Council, The Homeowners Association would like to formally invite you to join the board as a special interim representative for community oversight. Your presence is not only welcome, it is necessary. Signed, HOA Emergency Committee, formerly chaired by Karen M. Willoughby. I read it twice. Ellie looked up at me, her eyes cautious. Does that mean you're the boss now? I laughed, once, dry and short. No. It means they're panicking. Within a day, I got follow-up emails. Apologies. Assurances. Empty promises wrapped in language that sounded like control trying to rebrand itself as humility. They wanted me on the inside, not because they believed in me, but because they feared what I could do from the outside. One email ended with your leadership, we can restore what Karen damaged. But what Karen damaged wasn't just policy. It wasn't about mailbox paint colors or lawn measurements. It was trust. It was humanity. It was children. She didn't just break rules, she broke people. I remembered every note she'd slid under doors, every warning taped to trash cans, every HOA fine slipped onto windshields like a threat. I remembered seeing an elderly man cry because she threatened to evict him over improper shutters. I remembered the kid whose birthday party was shut down mid-cake cutting because his balloons were non-regulation. I remembered her smile when she called my daughter rude little filth. And now, they wanted me to wear her badge. That night, I stared at the envelope again. The gold trim looked familiar, identical to the one Ellie had seen in Karen's hands when she screamed at a neighbor over a garden gnome. I placed it on the kitchen counter and left it there. I didn't answer, not yet. Instead, I walked out into the backyard. Ellie followed, holding my hand. We sat on the swing she loved. The stars were clear, and for the first time in weeks, she smiled without fear. "You're going to fix it, aren't you?" she asked softly. I looked at her. "Not from their table," I said. "From the one they can't control." Because power, true power, doesn't come from a title. It comes from the people who refuse to forget what was done in the dark. And I was about to remind them all. The community center smelled like bleach and desperation. Chairs were lined in neat rows. The folding tables were draped in beige cloth. The podium stood under a flickering overhead light that hummed like a bad conscience. It was the first full HOA meeting since the incident. Everyone came. The live stream was on. The press was outside. And on the long table at the front, next to a jug of lukewarm water and a tray of untouched cookies, sat my nameplate, clean, polished, gold-lettered, Mr. R. Whitaker, Interim Oversight Chair. I didn't sit behind it. I stood. Behind me, Ellie sat in the front row with folded hands. A new bandage covered her cheek. Her feet didn't reach the floor. The room waited, tense, curious, nervous. The man at the podium cleared his throat. "We'd like to officially welcome Mr. Whitaker and recognize the extraordinary circumstances that led to this meeting." He gestured to the empty seat at the end of the board's table. Karen's chair, still there, still labeled, still untouched. "In honor of healing and rebuilding," he continued, "we've voted to reinstate a new code of conduct and elevate Mr. Whitaker as representative of the people." Applause. Scattered. Uneasy. I stepped forward. The mic squealed, then fell silent. "Thank you," I said flatly. "But I didn't come here for the seat." Murmurs. I reached into my jacket, pulled out the letter they'd sent. The badge. Even the second envelope labeled access credentials. I laid them out on the podium, one by one. "You asked me to replace her," I said. "To fix what she broke." I paused. Let the weight settle. But here's the truth. Karen didn't build something broken. She built something designed to break people. You could hear the silence grow teeth. She weaponized regulations, turned power into punishment, used your trust to humiliate children, evict veterans, and shame single mothers over weeds and wind chimes. I picked up the badge, looked at it. "And this title you offered me? It's not redemption. It's camouflage." Then I held it up over the mic. "You don't need a new leader. You need a reckoning." And I snapped the badge in half. Gasps. The room jolted like someone had fired a gun. Then I took the letter, tore it twice, and dropped the pieces onto the table. Last, I picked up the nameplate, my nameplate, and turned it to face the crowd. I don't want her chair. I slammed it down. I want her memory buried. Silence again, then a sound, soft at first, growing. Applause, from the back, then the sides, then the front row. Ellie smiled, not because I won, but because she did. Because for the first time, the system that hurt her saw her father stand up and burn it down in public. The next morning, her house was empty. The white Lexus that once blocked driveways and fire lanes was gone. The stone lion statues, once smug sentinels flanking her front steps, had been removed. The garden she had bragged about in every HOA meeting had withered in the August heat. And on the garage door, someone had taped a single sheet of paper. Just one word, printed in bold black letters. Remember. Neighbors passed it quietly. No one dared take it down. Karen didn't return. No press conference, no apology. Just disappearance, like a storm that had swallowed itself. The HOA site removed her name. The HOA inbox returned an auto-reply. This address is no longer monitored. Her mailbox collected dust. But her legacy didn't vanish. It hung in the silence, on sidewalks once patrolled, in gardens once fined, in children who now looked over their shoulders before playing too loudly. Ellie didn't talk about her much. She didn't have to. The scar on her cheek, thin, faint, but permanent, said enough. A week later, I took her back to the store. Same candy aisle, same shelf. Ellie paused before grabbing the chocolate bar. Her hand hovered in the air, eyes flicking toward the spot where Karen had stood that day. "It's okay," I said gently. "She's not here anymore." She picked the bar slowly, then clutched it to her chest like a victory. At the register, the cashier didn't flinch. She smiled. "On the house," she said softly. "Tell her. She was brave." Ellie smiled back, small and shy. It wasn't just a smile. It was healing. That night, we walked the neighborhood together. No words, just the hum of crickets and the rustle of wind in old trees. The same sidewalk Karen used to patrol with her HOA violation slips. The same corners where she'd confront teenagers over skateboard wheels. The same front porches where she left threats disguised as courtesy notices. Now, porches glowed with string lights. One family had painted their front door purple, Karen's most hated color, and no one complained. Ellie tugged on my sleeve. "Daddy?" "Yeah?" "You didn't have to do all that, for me." I stopped, knelt beside her. "I didn't do it for you," I said. "I did it because no one else ever stood up to her, and someone needed to show you that silence doesn't protect the people you love." She nodded, solemn. Then she reached into the grocery bag and held out the chocolate bar to me. "You should have the first bite," she said. I shook my head. "You earned it." We walked the rest of the way home beneath a sky that, for once, didn't feel like it was watching us. Some people call what happened a scandal. Others, a reckoning. But to us, it was a promise. That in this neighborhood, after all the noise, threats, glass, and blood, a father stood up, a little girl stood tall, and a tyrant finally fell. And no one would forget it. Ever again. Not every fight happens in a courtroom. Some happen in grocery store aisles. Some happen in front of your child, when you least expect it. And how you respond in that moment defines everything. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about showing my daughter that silence isn't strength, and being polite in the face of cruelty isn't kindness. It's surrender. Because when people like Karen rise to power unchecked, it's not just about HOA policies or broken rules. It becomes personal. It becomes cultural. It becomes normal for fear to wear a name tag and knock on your door pretending to be order. And when that happens, someone, anyone, has to be the one who says, "No more." This story wasn't about teaching Karen a lesson. It was about teaching my daughter something bigger. That she matters. That she deserves to be safe. That the world is wrong if it tells her to stay quiet after being hurt. So maybe that's the real takeaway here. Sometimes, being a parent means fighting battles your child won't understand yet, but will carry the impact of for years. Sometimes, doing the right thing doesn't look civil. Sometimes, standing up for what's right looks like slamming someone into a shelf of canned beans because nobody else would dare. But if it keeps a child from believing they're powerless, it's worth it. If you're still watching, thank you. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever witnessed someone abuse their position like Karen did? How did you react? Share your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. If this story moved you, if it reminded you of the quiet strength we all carry, waiting to be called upon, hit that like button so YouTube knows stories like this matter. And if you haven't already, subscribe for more powerful narratives that speak truth, challenge injustice, and sometimes, smash a little glass to make a bigger point. And finally, if you're still here at the very end, comment, still standing below. Let's see who made it all the way. Because the ones who stay to the end, they're usually the ones who fight when it matters most.